now we are finally seated, and particularly for me, no need to be queued here and there, very relaxing. So thank you for traveling all the time here with different distance. So we have, each of you leads a very critical network at a national or regional level, and each of you bring to the conversation with your personal, professional experience and insights. So we're very happy to have you. For our audience, we have very grateful to have this group, and just to respect and everybody, also be mindful of our time. So I would like to share with you the way how this panel works. So first, we will have the sequencing of the speaking is based on the distance of their organization's station to Singapore. So you will see Latin America, Africa, Australia, and then that's the global part, right? And once it goes to Asia, we have China, India, and Singapore. I know, Naina, but your AVPN is based in Singapore, so that's how you see how fair we wanted to respect our panelists. And also, we know the time is very limited. Each of them only get about 5 minutes. And so for each of the session, we will have questions for them, and they will have this time to speak. And our Jodo, again, will remind our guests about the time with his 2 minutes, 1 minute, and time's up reminder. So for us to make sure that everyone has a fair time to speak. Okay. So, the structure of this panel, we have two parts. First part is called Spotlight on Global Experiences. This is the part for us, for non-Asia speakers to share their experience. We have guiding questions for this. After this session, we'll open the floor for our audience for 1 or 2 questions, depending on how much time we left. And then the second part will be reflections on Asia experiences. So based on what our non-Asia speakers shared, we will have questions for our Asia-based panelists. And if everyone is on time, we will have time for audience to raise 1 or 2 questions. Then we will wrap this up. This is clear, right, for everybody? Okay, so the spotlight on global example, this is really to help us to enable a regional collaboration, exchange, and really try to facilitate the future partnership. So we prepared 2 guiding questions for our panelists for this session. First, what are most recent examples of successful philanthropy-engaged multi-stakeholder partnerships in your region? Reflecting on these examples, what role can philanthropy play in strengthening such partnership? So Carolina, Latimpacto brings more than 240 capital providers from the region and also creating the impact in the region. Which examples or funding models you would like to highlight today for us, please?
Thank you, and thank you. Good morning, everyone. I think it's a pleasure to be here representing Latin America and the Caribbean. So we are the biggest social investment network, and we, as you already mentioned, we gather almost 250 members that are investing in our region. They have headquarters in more than 30 countries, investing in more than 60 countries in the region. And one of our purposes, since we were established and following the role model of AVPN, our sister network in Asia, is how we can strengthen partnerships across the region. But strengthening partnerships, we need to see who is behind, the people is behind. We cannot talk about partnerships saying that we are here creating a partnership, taking care about the communities, about the data, about the information that we have. So with our members, we are trying to promote partnerships all the time, connecting them, and I'm so happy when you mentioned trust, because you cannot have a relationship if you don't trust in the other one. So it's something that we promote all the time with our meetings, with our conference, with our gatherings, virtual events as well. So as Benjamin mentioned, their conference will be in Montreal at the end of September, and ours will be the first week of September in Manaus, in Brazil, in the Amazon. So I think it's a good place to be because we want to interact with the communities. So I want to start to highlight an initiative that we run in partnership with Wings. So, and it is available also in English, so you can read it, and it's the Multi-Stakeholder Partnership for Climate and Biodiversity Initiative. So with this initiative, we started mapping 8 initiatives in the region, from Brazil, from Mexico, from the Amazon, from Colombia, and we identified best practices and barriers to effective collaborations. And I'm happy you can read it at our webpage, latimpacto.org. The initiative highlights several successful elements. So first is that we need to work with governments, businesses, communities, and philanthropic actors, and how we need to understand what are the challenges that we are dealing in terms of environmental and social impact. We need to understand the importance of catalytic role of philanthropy in activating, accelerating, and scaling solutions for climate and biodiversity challenges. We need to create spaces for practical conversations. It's not only about talking about all about businesses. It's how we can understand the reality of the communities that we are dealing with, how we can help participants to identify synergies, how we can have to reach these traditional approaches. We cannot dismiss these traditional approaches, and how we can co-design. All the time we are talking partnerships, how we can co-design and reduce fragmentation between environmental and social issues. So as a result of this partnership, we created a dashboard. It is a game. It's like playing Monopoly. So you have different cards, and you have a role. And it's how you can see your role and how you can co-design and see the challenge of each other. So this dashboard is also available in English, Portuguese, and Spanish. And right now, thanks to the success of this partnership that we are doing with Wings, we are training other national associations in Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, and Chile, so they can also implement the dashboard in their country. So it's something that we're promoting, how we can expand these methodologies. And I just will end in my final minute that I have Jodel talking about a successful partnership that we are promoting in Latin America, that is the Green Catalytic Fund. So with this fund, it's a multi-stakeholder partnership between Latimpacto, the Green Climate Fund, the Inter-American Development Bank, Coca-Cola, and Bayer Foundation. And the idea is how we can support social and environmental impact solutions that contribute to the reduction of greenhouse emissions and the promotion of innovation in natural capital as a net zero tool. So we are running this program, but also bringing, the governments, multilaterals, corporates, and foundations working together in an issue that is in a particular interest of all of us. And so we are supporting entrepreneurs, support organizations, and also entrepreneurs, and most of them should be led by women. So it is the way that we are creating partnerships, but in a very with a cross-cutting view.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Carolyn, not only traveling all the way from Colombia, but also sharing with us the people element. And also we emphasize the thematic and research-based partnership that is very important. And everybody probably as curious and excited as me, the game-based dashboard that can be really used by so many organizations in the region. Thank you.
I'm happy to share the dashboard because it's part of the partnership that we have with Wings.
Yes, great. Now let's travel from Latin America to Africa. Now we have Mosun, and you're leading the Africa Philanthropy Forum, which is the leading network of African impact investors committed really to try to face or tackle the issues are very pressing within the region, and also trying to find the homegrown solutions. So what kind of examples you would like to bring us to the stage? We discussed before, maybe within the continent, as well as some initiatives you have seen across the continent as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rui. I'm really happy to be here. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Philanthropy Alliance and Wings for putting this together and bringing so many continents to the stage. And I'm happy to go after Carolina from Latin America, which is one of the favorite continents, one of my favorite continents in the world. I run African Philanthropy Forum, and we're a network of philanthropists and foundations as well as social investors that are committed to inclusive and sustainable development, and sustainable development on the continent. And we have our footprints in about 14 countries across Africa with over 50 members that are not only Africans, but also non-Africans working in Africa to drive development on the continent. And it is a very interesting time in the world. We're living in times where things have shifted dramatically, especially in the funding landscape. And what we have seen that do within the network is seeing more collaboration and more cross-sectoral partnerships. And I think some of the examples I would like to share, actually the very first one I would like to share preceded this, the changes in the landscape, but it's a perfect example of the power of multisectoral partnerships. And that is the Mo Ibrahim Governance Weekend, which is led by the Mo Ibrahim Foundation. And it is a great example of how philanthropy can convene government and civil society to address systemic issues, even like governance, and also to see that philanthropy can do more than funding. Philanthropy can be more than a funder. Philanthropy can catalyze development and also serve as a thought leader, especially when it comes to informing government and even influencing government. The second example I would like to share is an interesting one, which is not just an African collaboration, but it is actually cross-continental, and that is the Milken Motsepe Prize, which is a partnership of the Motsepe Institute, the Motsepe Foundation, and the Milken Institute, which is based in the US. And they are working with social innovators across Africa, not just in South Africa where the Motsepe Foundation is based, but across South Africa. And we're looking at social innovators that are making a difference and tackling key issues around increasing agricultural productivity, expanding off-grid energy access, and even financial inclusion. The third that I would speak to is one of a new entrant in the space, and that is ASR Initiative, which brings together not just private and family foundations, but also working with corporate foundation, which is the BOA Foundation out of Nigeria, and partnering with governments across Africa. We're looking at countries that you typically wouldn't hear about. You know, when you talk about Africa, you hear Nigeria, you hear Kenya, you hear South Africa, but they are working with governments in Niger, in Liberia, in Francophone Africa, and they're doing great work in terms of reaching communities that are underserved in these countries, and also working with government to build infrastructure. These are critical examples of how philanthropy can not just work with philanthropy, but work with government and work with civil society to drive change and drive development on our continent. And when we talk about, the other question that Ray asked is, what role can philanthropy play in this time, you know, to ensure, you know, more collaboration when we're looking at our South-to-South engagement. I think that speaks directly to the heart of what Philanthropy Asia, Philanthropy Alliance Asia is doing, and even what we do at African Philanthropy Forum, and what Wings does that has brought us together today. At APF, our members are typically individual philanthropists, private and family foundations, and also corporate foundations. But we also work with bilateral and multilateral organizations like the OECD, for instance, and even sometimes we are working with government. And even when these partnerships are not formalized, they have gone a long way in forging common ground with unlikely actors in the space. And it just shows how philanthropy has the power to convene, because we have trust. I can say that my time is up. Trust, I think, is a huge currency, and Carolina talked about that philanthropy possesses. And we have the trust that will bring people together from across the world. And that's why we at African Philanthropy Forum are looking to go beyond Africa and engage the Global South at our upcoming conference in Cape Town in October, where we're having conversations on how we can band together as a Global South. We're looking at Latin America, looking at Asia, and even the Gulf states, on how we can work together to drive development and be more collaborative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mosun. Thank you for sharing with us, or emphasizing the role of philanthropy beyond funding, and also the participation in governance, and again, also your vision of the South-South collaboration. That's, I think, the biggest trend and context we're all sitting here. Now let's travel a little bit closer to Singapore. We have Mali from Minderoo Foundation. Since the founding of 2001, Minderoo Foundation has focused on the gender equality, also the communities and natural ecosystem in Australia. So could you share some of the experiences you had in terms of the partnerships and also the role that the philanthropy play in such a partnership? Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for bringing us all together to talk about these really important subjects. So, for those who don't know much about Minderoo Foundation, we're Australian-based philanthropy whose vision is a society that values all people and natural ecosystems. It was founded 25 years ago by Dr. Andrew Forrest and Nicola Forrest, and we have 4 focus areas that we spoke about. So gender equality, protecting natural ecosystems. We respond to urgent challenges in humanitarian sector, and we also do community development through early childhood development. So when I think about those strong examples from our work that we've been doing at Minderoo, it's where community themselves are driving the change, and philanthropy is playing that really deliberate and catalytic role. Across Australia, we're seeing a really growing momentum across the sector, including from government and civil society, to build the infrastructure that enables communities to set their own priorities about how issues are affecting their children and families and how they will be addressed. At Minderoo, we've been deeply involved in long-term partnerships where local governance structures led by community champions are coordinating their efforts across the early years, health and family services. And I really like it how this has been complemented over the past 15 minutes, that what makes these partnerships work is not scale at the start, but trust with long-term commitment and a shared understanding about what we're trying to achieve together. A constant feature of these successful partnerships is long-term, flexible investment from philanthropy in community backbone infrastructure. At Minderoo, we talk about this, about paying what it takes. That means funding the real cost of doing this work. Not just programs, but leadership time, governance, data capability, community engagement, and even the well-being of those leading the change in communities. Too often, communities ask to deliver systems change, but they're not resourced for the infrastructure that actually make this work possible. When philanthropy is willing to meet communities where they are, fund what is needed, and commit for the long term, it reduces fragmentation, strengthens trust, and allows community leaders to actually focus on the leading, bringing the community around the issue rather than constantly managing those funding gaps which we see all the time in those communities. I also want to discuss the role that data and measurement play. In the strongest examples that we've seen at Minderoo, data isn't something that's extracted from communities or reported upwards to funders. It's a shared tool that gives communities knowledge and that confidence and clarity to identify the issues that are important to them. At Minderoo, we're very deliberate in investing in data and measurement we're very deliberate about investing in data as infrastructure, not compliance. That means working with the communities to co-design what gets measured and ensuring that data reflects that lived experience that they're facing each day. And also providing those formalised indicators that we do need, and then presenting in a way that's useful, that is used locally and is not buried in reports. When communities can see patterns, track progress over time, and test what's working, it builds that shared understanding and the momentum and that community organising around an issue that's important to them. Underpinning all of this is that real shift of power from institutions to communities. Just in point to your question too, and then at the core, and this is something that's been touched on in my previous answers, is that support of instead of siloed pockets of impact to enabling systems to change through collaboration. Many communities are grappling with really similar issues and challenges, particularly in Australia because we're such a broad, large country. But so often they're doing it in silos and in isolation, and that's where that shared learning becomes critical. For cross-regional partnerships to work, communities need consistent spaces for that conversation, reflection, shared learning, and where they can challenge those assumptions and build that shared understanding and collective voice together. What begins to strengthen partnerships at a systems level is when shared learning and communities come together around the evidence to engage government and decision makers together to be more effective. And this is where that data point that I mentioned becomes really powerful. When communities are building and interpreting their own data together and own it, they're no longer just participants in those partnerships. They're building that knowledge that influences that decision making. So, time's up, sorry. But I guess I think the point that I really want to talk about is that we need to build that capability and capacities of communities, because ultimately success isn't about philanthropy becoming more central. It's actually about helping communities becoming connected, informed, and able to shape the systems that affect them, so philanthropy isn't needed anymore. We're just there to be at the beginning, and then we need to enable for them to be able to sustain the work. Thanks.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you for emphasizing the community-led, the shared learning, and also data-empowered partnership. I really like what you mentioned. The data is not for compliance, it's really for sharing and also to equip the nonprofits and the community. I think we all resonate with that, and I see a lot of nodding in the audience. So from our guests who shared outside of Asia, we have already learned the importance or the different types of philanthropy partnerships with research-based, thematic-based, and also governance, as well as community-led approaches. I know many of us, or all of us, have different types of partnerships, and you probably have questions based on our panelists' sharing. So because of time, we'll open the floor for one question. And when you ask the question, please share your name, your organization name. If your organization you think we don't know and you're very eager to share your organization, please limit it into one sentence and then really raise your question. And feel free to invite our guests who just shared to answer your question. So one question, please. A gentleman here, please.
Thanks. Hello, my name is David Hipgrave. I'm a professor of global health at Duke NUS here in Singapore. Recently, there was a thought piece in The Lancet about research funding and the loss of research funding over the last over the last year, say. I'm wondering if the philanthropists or the representatives of philanthropic groups on stage can see that might be something that could be a focus for them as well, drawing particularly on Melanie's point about data. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Marley, you would like to answer?
Yeah, sure. I think there's Minderoo is a big believer in providing and having research and evidence base. So I think you're right, there is a role of philanthropy to play in that. I think bringing on to mind paying what it takes as well is that as we can see the sector, particularly in Australia, having the resources stripped back more. There's a lot of amalgamation happening amongst the university sector. So I think discussions need to be had with government and the philanthropic sector, how philanthropy money can be complementary and catalytic for the roles and the research that needs to happen with universities. Yeah, I don't know if my colleagues have anything else I'd like to add.
Yeah? Are you happy with the answer? Okay.
Can I add?
Yes, please add. Yeah.
I just want to add that in my own context in Africa, that is true. It's not an area that philanthropists would typically fund, but the role that network organizations like African Philanthropy Forum play is to elevate conversations and issues that don't receive the funding that they ought to. And what we have found is that new entrants into philanthropy, those that haven't been in the space for long but are new and emerging and learning about the space, are more inclined to fund areas that don't typically receive funding, such as research. So it's beginning to get some airtime with philanthropists and interest as well.
Thank you. You cool. Okay. Thank you. So thank you for your question. And I'm sure many of you have other questions. Feel free to talk to our guest after this panel. Now let's zoom back to our region. After hearing the examples from our panelists outside of Asia, I think you started to reflect a lot of your work as well. So for this reflections on the Asian context session, we also prepared 2 guiding questions. First one, what are the similarities and differences of such partnerships in Asia? Any lessons for Asia and any experiences to share from Asia? Second, what role do you think Asia philanthropy can play to maximize the global partnership and developments? So with that, we would first now travel a little bit further to the north. We will start from China, India, and then Singapore. So Ray, the other Ray on the stage, Impact Philanthropy Institute is both a think tank and a platform that engage more than 40 companies, actually, private sectors in China to support Chinese philanthropy. So what are the similarities and differences you see in your work? And maybe what role do you think your platform, your organization can play for Asia philanthropy or even broader in the global philanthropic sector? Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back to Asia, and happy to be another Ray on the stage. I assure you this is not a common name. Yeah, I'm from the Impact Philanthropy Institute. We are a think tank and a magazine called China Philanthropist. And we're also the co-founder of Sustainable Social Value Collaboratives. The collaborative, actually today is the 1-year anniversary of this collaborative. And we grow from 19 members to 46 members. And most of them are corporate, business corporates. Why business corporates? Because in China, the donations from business corporates takes more than 75% of the total givings in China, which this number in American is 7%. And during our research, we found a very trendy thing, which is they're not only giving out the monies, they want to contribute in a variety of ways by giving their core capabilities. For example, Tencent, they're very good at the digital tools or internet tools. And Didi and Lalamove can contribute to transportations and logistics services. I'll just give one example. Well, last year in August, a flood hit Rongjiang County. It's a county in Guizhou province. And Tencent, well, I'm sure you all know what a disaster relief looks like. People tend to donate everything they could to help the affected peoples and households. And Tencent, based on their understanding of the social problems and the digital tech, they started this Tencent Digital Care Platform. With the help of this platform, 636 affected families was identified very accurately as soon as the flood happens. And with the knowing of these numbers, companies and citizens and general public who wants to donate anything, they know what to donate and they know how many things they need. And this is really a win-win situation. For the affected houses, they get supported, sometimes customized, saying if your house has a newborn, if your house has an elderly that needs some nutrition supplies, the corporate who gathered these needs could donate directly through these platforms. And as soon as you were identified as a affected household, a digital care card was sent to your mobile phones. You can just verify it in your doorways, in the supporting stations, in the flood areas. So this is for the affected houses. And for the corporate philanthropies, this is very accurate, and this is very transparent and fast. So no single companies can do this alone. So this is how the collaborative was organized. And I'm often be asked how you organize this, getting to know each other and know what their capabilities is. But our way is to organize as little as possible. We are really a loose structure, and we getting to know each other, to know their capabilities very mainly through interactions, through the talks like this, events like this, through our researches, surveys, and through the corporate tours. The business corporate are really driven by the shared values during these kind of interactions. And they tend to self-organize when their capabilities fits. So the partnership is the actions itself, and that's why this kind of response could happen just in days, not in weeks or months. Yeah, but we're not gonna stop there. We're gonna go further. We're gonna go deeper. So today in the afternoon, we're gonna announce another big action network. I guess you guys are already invited, and you're as the leader of all the collaboratives, you're more than welcome to join us, because I think it is you guys, we can collaborate together to bring this kind of scale out of the borders into the Asias. Travel, the cases like Rongjiang can travel across the economies, and so together we will make it better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you for sharing a very practical example. You know, being able to engage such a diverse and a strong group of a private sector is not an easy thing, and also leveraging their know-how and expertise from the industries to support social problems is very critical. And I think it's the tailored way and also very practical way is something that maybe we could share. Also, you mentioned of many of the companies are now footprint is within the region or even outside of region. The future probably with your network we can collaborate even just on this stage. Thank you. Now we're going to Krishna. So at the heart of your work, I love the sentence, so I wrote it down, is the philosophy of collaboration at Sattva. So since 2009, your organization has been, delivering sustained results and work in many of the emerging economies, and particularly in India. Could you share with us some of those concrete examples, and also with your rich experience, what's the role of philanthropy you would like to highlight with us?
Thank you so much. I must let you know that I've, bribed Jodel to give me an extra minute, as well. So some wonderful points that I want to kind of build on. We have been privileged to sit in the middle of government, business, and civil society, and that's been our business model. So we work with all the players, and hence we end up running a lot of collaboratives that holds them together. It's been both painful and enriching. So we have lots of, both fun and tearful stories to share. But I think, a couple of examples that I want to highlight is about 4 or 5 years ago, the Indian government announced the national education policy, which had to be implemented in about 1.7 million schools in India, which was very, very ambitious. It was very, very good, but it was not an easy policy because the capacity didn't exist. So in my home state of Karnataka, thanks to, which is where a lot of the new rich millionaires are from the tech ecosystem, they decided to kind of create a collaborative amongst them to see if they could help implement this policy. Immediately, thanks to Gates Foundation, they decided to top it up. The moment we announced this, one of the largest steel manufacturers and the large corporate in the state said, I will double everything that you guys are putting together. And then we set up a Karnataka Model School program as a collaborative. We had about 8 nonprofits, each with different expertise of implementing the national education policy come together. And then we together signed an MOU with the government of Karnataka to actually implement this program. And we had our partners for M&E and everything else that kind of followed. What that resulted in is almost close to 1 million children now getting direct impact of this program. We've had a lot of MNCs in Bangalore join the program and adopt schools. It's the same platform. Everybody's adopting pieces of the puzzle in some form, and also some of the other Indian companies. But interestingly, 2 years, 3 years into the program, the Karnataka state government said, we will start using all the learnings of this program into actually changing the policy, the budgets of the entire state. And yesterday, one of the panelists on the corporate panel was telling about that government adopts evidence rather than projects and programs. So this program is now informing, 10 times, 10 million kids is, budgets and, and the curriculum and all the other stuff. So that's been very, very interesting, and this continues to grow. And interestingly, now 3 other states have now invited us. We've already started the program in 1 more state. Another example, because there was a mention of science, India, we are less than half of what we need to be spending in private sector when it comes to translational research. Government of India spends a lot on foundational research, but we have translational research that's missing. So recently, 3 philanthropists, in partnership with us, came together to start India's translational research initiative, where we've now listed out all the translational needs for research and design in India, and what needs to be done to bring the corporate, government, and philanthropist ecosystem together. We listed about 52 translational research centers, who has expertise, which research center in India, what needs to happen, and also the entire amount that is required. And it was strange that the total amount of funding required to bring these 52 translational centers in India to happen is equal to a recent famous wedding that happened in India, right? Which means the money exists, we just have to kind of channel it to the right, kind of places. But how do you, I think the point of trust was very clear, but how do you do this at scale? Collaboration is good, and we need to bring mainstream into the game, because unless we do that, unless we bring business and government into the game, the collaboration is not going to scale. We'll keep playing our philanthropy game, but we're not going to get to the real solving of the problem. So how do we kind of make that happen, and what builds trust? And building on the point on data, we realize, for example, in India, there are 400,000 nonprofits. There are, hundreds and thousands of universities, 1,000 incubators, 32,000 companies that come under the CSR law. You have such a huge ecosystem. So how do you build trust with this ecosystem? And the answer we found was in data. When everybody speaking the language of data, we all see the same data, that builds serious trust. So a lot of us have now started building data for the sector, so that the more data you can put out there, all of us will speak the same language. We all now connect to the same dots. We'll find each other to partner, and the discoverability, significantly increases. So making, collaboration happen in a way that we're able to bring mainstream, we're able to bring government, and multiplying that with data, I think is very, very critical for us. We've also realized that one of the missed opportunities in all this is the actual civil society, which is the consumer. All of us, I think, are a bit underestimating, the amount of value that can bring. So that's another thing that we should potentially, consider as well.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us this collaboration beyond the private sector. We know India has a very rapid growth also in the private sector, but your collaboration not only involved the private sector in India, but also with international organization, and then also proven the evidence to the government that you actually managed to influence the policy. And you also mentioned the data as Marley, but then now we see data can be, a capacity for nonprofits, for community-led, also can be evidence to change the policy, as well as evidence actually to build the trust. So thanks for sharing. Finally, we are traveling back to Singapore. And Naina, I think there is no need to introduce AVPN on this stage or Naina on this stage. But really, you are one of the best persons actually to present Asia philanthropy within and outside of our region. So from all your rich experience, which type or which example of partnership you would like to highlight to us? And more interestingly, what the philanthropy in Asia can play the role within the region and also globally? Thank you.
Thanks, Sri. Huge pleasure to be here, and yeah, I love it when AVPN is asked to represent Singapore. We are a Singaporean organization, and very proudly one, but we do represent all of Asia. We have 800 organizations that work the length and breadth of Asia. And it's interesting, when Krishna was talking, the scale in India or the scale in China, we have that in Asia, but we also have Laos, we have Cambodia, we have Indonesia, and then we have West Asia. So we are so diverse. We are 66% of the world's population that lives in our continent. We are also the continent where wealth is being created faster than anyone else, in the world. And we are also the region where the most amount of inequality exists, where there is the most number of climate disasters. So collaboration here is a necessity. And it's, for us at AVPN, what we try to do is really look at collaboration across countries, which, Krishna talked about the pain and the tears of working in a collaborative, trying to collaborate across borders with philanthropists across borders is really difficult and yet also very rewarding. I just came to this plenary from a meeting which is about the Asian Commission on Philanthropy. And that has been such an interesting journey because it's really looking at bringing together organizations from across Asia to really reflect to the rest of the world how philanthropy happens in Asia, but really also how we are building a philanthropic ecosystem that is different, that is in Asia, for Asia. I think I've been in this space for almost 15 years now, and what I can say is that we are coming into our own. For us, we are now representing what works for us and what is built, for us based on the experience that we've gone through, based on the data that we have collected. My colleagues from Africa and Latin America talked about, partnerships and talked about collaboration. Partnerships and collaboration in Asia is not very different from what happens in Latin America or what happens in Africa or what happens in Australia. I think Australia is part of Asia Pacific, and we'll just count you as one of ours, not something that's separate. But where I think it's really interesting is that we look at intersectionalities a lot more. We look at working with government a lot more. And for us, a lot of philanthropy, institutional philanthropy, is first generation. I think philanthropy across Asia Pacific is in our blood, it's in our genes, it's something that's happened for generations. But institutional philanthropy is very new. And how do we really work through that? For us, also what's been different is that the philanthropy is very blurry. You talked about corporates and corporate giving. A lot of wealth is created by business. And for them, the corporate philanthropy and their personal philanthropy, the lines, unfortunately or fortunately, are a bit blurred. So it comes together. So when we have partnerships, it's really bringing corporate philanthropy together with individual philanthropy and really seeing how you can support government rather than replace it and actually work together. So we've seen that through a number of our examples, whether it's our Climate and Health Lighthouse Fund that looks at the intersectionality of climate, health, and gender, our Asia Impact Opportunity Fund that works with a large corporate but really looking at digital skilling, AI in education, but again, working across countries. So even though Ray wanted me to talk about Singapore, I think as our hosts, the Philanthropy Asia Alliance, also based in Singapore, will tell you that while we're all based in the little red dot, we are looking at philanthropic partnerships across the region, really looking at how we can make our continent far more inclusive and far more developed, but coming together. So thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you for emphasizing the intersectionality and of also sharing with us we are at the special era that we are at the philanthropy in Asia for Asia, maybe even for more global agenda. Really love your sharing. So as promised, we have one question to our audience. Same thing, your name, your organization name, and a very brief question to any of the speakers just shared. Anyone? We have a gentleman in the first row next to Jodo. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for a very engaging panel. My name's Karimi Gitonga. I represent Catholic Relief Services, which is international humanitarian and development arm of the US Catholic Church. It was great to hear about the role of the government and sort of systems-led approaches coming through all of the participants. My question is on civil society and the role that philanthropies can support civil society organizations. I think across all of the different areas which we operate, we're seeing a shrinking space for civil society and rules of the game becoming harder and harder to operate, and they're a key aspect in this sort of ecosystem. So I wanted to know what role philanthropies can play in supporting civil society agencies in this philanthropy space, or giving them the tools and capabilities to operate.
Thank you. Yes, please, Krishna.
You know, it's very interesting. As one of the challenges we're facing in India is that as CSR is growing, NGOs are becoming more corporatized. You know, it's all about now reporting and, you know, as well, right? And hence some of the questions in the older, you know, civil society ecosystem is, are we losing the fabric of, you know, why we started and things like that. And also there are so many grassroots organizations, you know, that are doing community-based work and volunteer-led work, which don't kind of necessarily fall under the requirements of large funders and things like that. So again, one of the things we did was to discover them. Most of us didn't know where they existed, how many of them. We've now built a data platform where by pin code I can tell you exactly who's there, who doing what, you know, and how big are they and small. So data, again, you know, of bringing this problem up helps a lot. Second, thankfully, a lot of the local philanthropists are realizing this challenge and actually investing you know, on building the capacity of that local ecosystem, which takes a lot of hard work. And it's taken, you know, I work with about 4 philanthropists. It's almost taken them 15 years to get the formula right. And now they're expanding into different places. They only work with very small, local, grassroots civil society organizations. So we need to now tell that story a lot more and highlight them so that that's also a form of philanthropy that becomes, while systems change is great, we also need that local, because I can tell you during COVID, that's what saved us, right? It was not anything else. So we need to kind of not forget and bring that up as strongly as possible.
Thank you. We have everyone is very excited to share, but our time's up. So we today at this global agenda, we have discussed right here in Asia this global issue and also the partnership. To wrap up, to close our session, may I ask our guests, each of you, to share your vision for Asia philanthropy and the partnerships in the future. And please limit them into only 3 words, not phrases or sentences. And we'll start from Naina.
So I think risk-taking, I think collaborative, and actually catalytic.
Thank you. Krishna.
Make impact mainstream.
Smart. Thank you. Ray.
Commit, combine, co-create.
Thank you. Marley.
I feel like I'm really repeating all my other words here, but convener, collaborate, catalytic.
Thank you.
I was going to say convene, collaborate. I think the third I would say is cross-border.
Thank you.
So actually, I had the same word, so catalyst, capital, risk, but I would say also how we can bridge across sectors.
Thank you.
With different actors.
Bridging. Thank you so much. So to close this session, just to remind you, today is May the 20th in Mandarin, 520. 520, the pronunciation is similar to I love you, 我爱你. So this is really a day of love, and someone did this. And we are here to celebrate this partnership and hopefully full of love. And on behalf of our panelists and the PA and the Wings, wish you a lovely day. Thank you.